the other stuff, right? And that's dangerous. You got to go with Gestalt, but you got to know what else Gestalt would say. Okay. If your closed captioning is on, you should be able to see my words. That's under your more actions and just turn on. So you should be able to see my words as well. Try to make sure to get all my learners. So if you're an auditory, visual, seeing, all those things. And again, this is being recorded. Okay, so research and evidence-based inquiry. Evidence-based, empirical-based are all the exact same thing. When it comes to treating mood disorders, empirical-based, evidence-based says CBT and medication is the way that we treat mood disorders. Okay, so that means borderline. Bipolar, right? The moods, the ups and downs, the depression, any of those things for the test, that's the right answer because it's research based, empirical based. The test doesn't really care what you do in your office. Okay. So if it's a mood disorder, if it's anxiety, right? So if it's OCD, the obsessive compulsive disorder, where you're always, washing your hands or the intrusive thoughts, the treatment of choice based on research is still going to be CBT and medication. Okay. So you don't get an opinion there. Those are just facts. I said before, quantitative and qualitative. Okay, so I'm a social worker by trade. I'm an LCSW. I've been in this field forever. Now, y'all know that my PhD research was qualitative. Let's not even pretend because I still don't like numbers. I understand them better, right? My research was qualitative because qualitative looks at the quality of the experience. So when you leave a restaurant, right? And I went to the restaurant and I thought it was amazing. Oh my gosh, it was so great. And you went to the restaurant and you hated it. Are either one of us wrong? No, right? That's qualitative research. So the quality for me was different than the quality for you. So neither one of us are wrong. So it assumes that there are multiple realities, right? Just because I don't like AT&T and you do, and I don't like T-Mobile, neither one of us are wrong. It tends to look at an individual unit, a person, a family, a community. The researchers may be primary instrument for collecting data. So in qualitative research, one of the biggest tools is me watching. Just watching. If you remember way back when, you probably had to learn about Jane Goodall. She was the one that did observation studies with the monkeys, apes, gorillas, one of those things, right? Primates. There we go. Okay. And that's what she did, right? She moved in with them. She lived with them. She observed them. And all she did was take notes. So that was really her research. Researchers' impressions, judgments, and feelings can be used. And the goal is to describe the nature. Okay. When I'm looking at those test questions, quantitative is always cause and effect. Qualitative is the relationship. We talked about last week the correlation, the correlation coefficient, right? The number that tells me how these two things are related, that's only used in qualitative research. They both have the same. To be honest with you, back in the day, we really didn't think that quantitative, we thought quantitative was the best. So we thought it was better than qualitative. Now, that's just not true. Okay. So we know that the quantitative and qualitative both have the same amount. Inductive and deductive. Okay. So I like these terms. So I always think of like Clue or CSI or any of those talk shows where there's some research going on or a murder scene. I'm just looking for one that I always like. That one. Nope. That one. There we go. Okay. So inductive versus deductive. Deductive reasoning starts with the theory first, and then I prove the theory. Okay. So it's Aristotle. He's a great philosopher. So deduction is I walk in the house, there's a dead body on the floor, and the husband is standing above the dead body with a knife in his hand, right? My hypothesis is based on the blood drippings, he did it. Okay. I'm going to find evidence to prove that he did it. So I'm starting with the theory first, and I'm going down to prove my theory. Okay. So I say this is how wealthy people, right? How they get arrested. Yes, you walk into my house, and yes, there's blood dripping everywhere, and yes, my fingerprints are everywhere. But you say, "Let's just go on home, Dr. Pam. We'll get back with you later." And then you call me later, and I like turn myself in. Right? That's deductive. Theory down. Inductive is theory up. Okay, so inductive is Sherlock Holmes, right? He's trying to find the clues. So observation, pattern, hypothesis, and theory. And let me say that again. Okay, so theory down. Okay, I am proving my theory. Theory up is I've got the theory, I've got the observation, and I'm trying to find the theory. So let me make sure I clarify that for you. So in the theory down, I find the dead body. The wife is sitting over the dead body with the blood dripping from the knife, right? In this situation, I'm going to go ahead and arrest her and prove that she's guilty. So deductive is my PO people, PO, the PO people. Inductive is the other way. Those are my wealthier families, right? Those are the ones that the police call and say, would you mind turning yourself in? Go ahead and bring your attorney and come on in. If it's you, more power to you, right? So this is Sherlock Holmes. So that's like the clue. He finds like the librarian, the cook with the piece in the library. So that's what you find first. But you don't get arrested first based on this. You find the clues, and then that proves the theory. So theory down, you did it. I'm going to prove you did it. Theory up is I find some clues, and I'm going to see if you did it. Okay, so to deduct and then induce. Okay, so when it comes to my experimental, okay, there's a couple of terms that you should know. So a true experiment. Oh, I hear somebody. Please mute yourself. A true experiment is I have two groups, right? I have a control group and I have an experimental group. They are randomized. So I think we're in a time now of just a great time to kind of look at research in real life and see what it looks like, right? So with all the COVID vaccines and what's going on, so what they do is they really look at doing experimental research. So you'll see something on like one of those websites, and it says we're looking for 500 people to come and blah 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 take part of this test. So then the true experiment is the 500 people show up. 250 go into the experimental group, 250 go into the control group. I don't know which is which. The control group gets either a placebo or nothing, nocebo. The experimental group gets the drug. And at the end, I see the difference. That's a true experience, okay? A true experiment. It's got the two groups. They're randomized. I don't know who's what, right? And then I look at the results. So that's where I'm going to use that double blind, right? So that way that stops researcher bias. The double blind is I don't know which group got which. Double bind, B-I-N-D, that belongs to strategic family therapy. Double blind is a research term. So a true experiment, right? Experimental group, they get the drugs. The control group gets nothing. Either the placebo, or sometimes the term nocebo means you got nothing. Okay. Experimental designs are cause and effect. Cause and effect belongs to quantitative. Cause and effect is always quantitative research. This gives you an example. 60 college freshmen enrolled in a high school class. 30 are randomly assigned to 1 hour per week writing lab. The other comprise of a control group. Control group doesn't get it. Each in the semester, essay examination results are analyzed to see if the lab was associated with better writing skills. True experiment. Randomization is what I'm looking for. Okay. So then, go back up. So in my agency, I cannot do a true experiment. You can't come in for treatment, right? You've been seeing me forever. You come by the psychiatrist and you get your antidepressant, and then you come to see me, and all of a sudden this week I'm giving you a new therapy that's not tried before. I cannot do that in a quasi group, in an agency. So I have to use a quasi group. What that means is it not randomized. So I know who's getting the new drug, the new therapy. I'm aware of it. So that way, the research is still valid. It just cannot be generalized to other areas. It just means in this group right now, but in my agency, I know exactly who's getting the medication and who's not. It's unethical for you to be coming in getting your Prozac, and I'm giving you an unethical or unproven drug or nothing, right? I cannot do that without your permission. When you see those questions, and Code of Ethics talks about research as well, you can lie to your client. I know the Code of Ethics says we don't do that, but when it comes to research, you can. You absolutely can, as long as at the end you've had this conversation and it's not exploitive to the client. So when you're doing true research, right, you don't know if you're getting the real drug or not. Right? So I'm not being forthcoming with the client, but at the end, we'll talk about it. So that's why it's really, really okay. Also, remember, in research, like any other code of ethics, the client has the right to leave anytime they want. Okay, so they can withdraw their informed consent anytime whatsoever. Okay, just some other terms that you might see. Okay. Descriptive, that simply describes the existing state of events. If I am doing research and I did this whole research piece and I want someone to know what I did or to know if you can replicate it, I'm going to use descriptive. I'm going to tell you exactly what I did, exactly what happened, etc. Comparative. Comparative is whether there are two differences between two groups or more. Nothing is done though. Nothing, I just happen to have two groups. So let's say at the beginning of the senior year, I'm looking at the kids over the summer, and half the kids went to summer school and half the kids got summer jobs. And I'm trying to see the difference of that first test when I start the senior year. I didn't do any research. All I have is these two groups that were already out there, right? And I'm comparing them to each other, but I haven't done any research. So that's a comparative group. I mentioned correlation right before, correlation coefficient. It's a 99.9% chance you're the baby daddy, right? Those two things match. Okay, that's correlation. But it's not cause and effect. Remember, it is just that these two things are related. Okay, I usually talk about the price of gas and what's going on in the world, right? So as long as the war in Afghanistan goes up, right, gas is going to keep going up. That's a positive correlation. They're both going the same way. The war stops, gas goes down. That's still a positive correlation, right? They're both going the same way. Right? I don't know about now, but that president said he might drop that gas tax, right? So if the war goes up and gas goes down, that's a negative correlation. They're related, right? But they're related inversely. One goes up, one goes down. Term ex post facto literally means after the fact. When I'm teaching this to my current college kids, I just call that the morning after pill. Like, oh, right? So ex post facto is, it already happened. So what are we going to do about it? So what it means is that in a causal comparison or any other thing, if something happens, I just need to go back and note that. Okay. So, for example, if I'm doing research on college women and how fatigued they are, and later on, one of the researchee comes back and tells me she was pregnant, That's an after the fact. I can't go back and change my research, but I do need to note, right, that something happened after the fact. You didn't manipulate any variables. The focus is on what already happened after the fact. Okay. I don't know. That may have been outlawed this week in your state. I don't know. I can tell you that your values play no role with the clients. Your code of ethics says your values don't get in the way, and you work with where your client is at. So, as a counselor, you just remember that, especially as we are in a time when things are changing with Roe versus Wade. Your values have no place in this whatsoever. And I will always say, check yourself because you don't get to bring your stuff into somebody's life. Okay, that's my soapbox for today. But social workers, counselors, psychologists, we don't get that option. Okay. So then again, ex post facto, morning after pill. So then, this is called the Solomon Square. The Solomon Square is when I am trying to determine where the change occurred. One thing Joanna mentioned earlier is she would Google some things. I will always say to you, if you're not sure what you're Googling, don't trust that. Okay, because you'll get information that may not be accurate for what you need. So, like I've done this 1,000 times. I know I put in Solomon Foursquare psychology or Solomon Foursquare research, but if you just Google that, you'll get something that's not related to this whatsoever. So just be careful. Don't just do your studying by Googling. You have to really have that content down. So the Solomon Foursquare, what I'm looking for is trying to determine what causes the change. Okay. So then I have four. So I have four different groups. And of course, it's real research because they're randomized, right? It's not a quasi, they're randomized. So group A, they get the pre-test, the treatment, the post-test. Group B, they don't get the treatment. They just get the post-test and they get the pre-test and the post-test. Group C gets treatment and post-test, and group D just gets the post-test. So I always try to make it real because I just think learning this concept is better if I understand it. So then I know none of you, because you're always like probably just absolutely perfect weight, have never struggled. Me, on the other hand, got some issues. So the pre-test, so let's say that I'm trying to lose weight, right? I go into Weight Watchers, the pre-test, I step on the scale now, I'm like, oh my God, what? Okay, so the pre-test. So then the treatment, right? I got to stay on like, I don't know, I did Weight Watchers. I get like, 6 points a day. I think you get like 20 something, but I don't know. You get my points a day, right? I follow my program. I go check in every week. I take the protest and I see that I'm losing weight. Okay, that's the first group, right? They got the pre-test, they got the treatment, and they got the post-test. It shows that I followed my points, right? I drank my water, I lost my weight. Now, so group two, sometimes just the pre-test is enough. None of you, I know, but sometimes you go to the doctor and you step on the scale and you're like, right? I don't need any treatment. The fact that I know how much I weigh is enough for me. And the doctor knows too, like, whoa. Okay, so sometimes the pre-test is enough. So I may still then lose weight without any treatment whatsoever. The third one is I don't know how much I weigh to start with. I just know that I'm going to get treatment and the pre-test. I'm sorry, the treatment and the post-test. And the last one, right? I don't know where I started, but I come back in 3 months later, and that's the post-test. The goal of the Solomon Square is to see what caused the change, right? Was it nothing, right? So in D, nothing at all. I just lost weight. I'm praying for that day to happen, but oh no, okay, it hasn't happened yet. So, C, was it the treatment? I didn't know how much I weighed to begin with. I just got treatment. Maybe that was what the cause was. B, again, went back up. The pretest, the minute I knew what the problem was, I got better without any treatment. Or then 4, the A, which gets all 4 of those. So that's the goal of the Solomon squares, to see what caused the change, if anything. Okay. Solomon square. Okay. And again, so that's the picture, but in the book and on the test, okay, that's what it looks like. So then here are the designs, the treatment and the control group with the post test, right? There's this one has the pre-test and the post-test. And then there's 2 different groups, control groups, pre-test, post-test, and other combinations. That's all that is saying. That experimental design is called the Solomon square. Okay. Okay, so a quantitative, again, those are my numbers, right? That's cause and effect. These 2 things happen because they're related. I'm sorry, oh, wow, not related. One thing caused the other. Now, qualitative, like I said, that is the correlation, not the relationship. So a couple of these that we'll see, a case study. So you know that Freud started his theory on a case study. Anna O, right? That was not Freud's case. That was his friend's case. And despite what we know about Freud's craziness, we know that before Freud, we didn't have any talk therapy whatsoever. We were putting women in asylums, giving them like lobotomies, ice baths, trying to exorcise the demons from them. Okay. So then, the first case study he did was Anna O. And you never know her real name, but it was one of his friend's cases. So then she initially sought help with a series of symptoms that included visual disturbances, hallucinations, partial paralysis, speech problems, all of those things. So he went back and he studied her case. So a case study can be one event, one person. So you're looking about it. So it can be something that's in the past. It can be something that's going on now. So I'm sure there are tons of case studies going on now on COVID, but I bet there are case studies that went on COVID, in the past on COVID as well. Okay, so an event, a uh, um, a person, things like that. In our city, I live in Chattanooga, about 5 years ago now. The day before Thanksgiving break, there was a horrible bus crash. There were like 7K, maybe I think it was 11 kids killed on the way home from school, on the bus home from school. And it was a very small community. So I mean, very tight knit, school in the middle of like the neighborhood. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful, 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 awful. So many things have come out of that. So there was a case study on whether or not school buses should have seatbelts. There was a case study on should we train drivers more. There was a case study on should routes be changed of how how drivers take kids home, all based on that one incident. Okay. Ethnography. Somebody is still, I hear you turning papers. If you get to mute yourself, if you go back in front of you and hit your microphone button, it makes it so much easier for me. So, ethnography. The ethnography is based on what? Ethnicity. I know, right? Keyword. So, if I am doing research looking from the client's ethnical viewpoint, ethnicity. So again, I'm going to just talk about COVID because that's really where our research is at right now. A lot of the COVID medications, how it was treated, things like that. So I teach people like all over the world, every place. I was tutoring someone who was a Hasidic Jew, so the ones that live very close in the community, right? But usually long hair, that's what you see. Very, very close knit in upstate New York. They don't believe in any medications. They often have a lot to do with outside world. It's in New York. I mean, it's within an hour from the city. But a huge part of that community died because they were so close, right? The synagogue is in the middle, and you walk, and everybody's together, right? That's a lot different than a traditional Jewish community, right? Or Reformed Jewish community. All totally different. We look at like the Native Americans that were already the poorest people in our country, the first people. A lot of those people live still on reservations, right in the middle of nowhere. So casinos, so those on where I live at least, casinos can only be on sovereign land. They can only be on Native American property, right? That's a sovereign land. So when COVID first hit and casinos closed, right, the people that were getting a stipend a month went away. It's not like it was the publicly owned casino, right? Where, what you still got unemployment or whatever. This is how many of the people on the reservation support themselves. So that's what ethnography is like, looking at from that ethnicity's viewpoint. Okay. Non-interactive, that simply means that I'm watching, I'm observing, I'm doing some history research, things like that. Mixed methods is fine. It's a pain in the butt. I would not do it, but you can do both qualitative and quantitative. Single subject design. That is what you do every single day. The single subject design is you come in, you take a baseline, and then you do an intervention. Okay. It can be done with a person or it can be done with a group. Okay. So then, those of you that do anything at all of us in this field, the first thing you do when someone walks in the room is you take their baseline. How long have you been depressed? Right? How long have you and your husband fighting? How many times, did he hit you? That is the first thing you do. Always, always, always is you take a baseline. That's the initial interview, the psychosocial assessment, whatever you call it. That's your baseline, right? Then you put in an intervention, right? So I'm going to refer you to medication. We're going to try some CBT. We're going to put you in family therapy. Whatever that is my intervention. And then when you come back, I'm going to see if my intervention worked. That's it. That's it. Single subject design. One person or one group of people. You do it every single day. So when your comes a client comes in next week, you don't have to say to them. You can just say, "Oh wow, this is a single subject design." That's all I'm doing is gathering the baseline and seeing if the intervention worked. So an A B is a single subject. A B A B, right? Is I followed up to see if it worked. I can do A B A B. I can repeat it to do it. So if you look at this one, this is a group of students, right? So this is the teacher is looking at the percent of time studying, and this one is the number of sessions. So first time you came and take a baseline, and what you found is that this is time, right? So this is the first couple of weeks of school. Well, look, those first couple of weeks of school, kids are only studying about maybe 40%, right? Maybe we get a little bit above 40. That's the baseline. I'm just observing how often they're studying. So then I come in, I'm FBA, functional behavior, right? I do a functional behavior analysis. I come in, I observe the classroom, and I say, so let's look at let's look at putting in some positive interventions, right? Some positive attention, right? When they do something right, we're going to give them a big old positive reinforcement. So that I come back and I watch while she's implementing the reinforcement, it goes up. Like, yay, it worked. Bam is great. Bam is great. Then, I come back and I want to see if it really worked. So I take the baseline again, right? And then I can do another episode of the same one. Or if I find out it's not working, I can do a different intervention. Okay. Single subject design. One person, one group of people. An excellent question that you'll see on this may be about the Beck's. Okay. The client comes in and, the Beck's depression scale, 1 to 10. Whenever you see a scale that says 1 to whatever, assume that 10 is the highest unless it tells you different. Okay. So on a Beck's depression scale, the client comes in, I'm taking their baseline, I'm asking them how they're doing. I give them the Beck's assessment scale and they're like a 9. That's like up there, like suicidal, right? Like, whoa, up there. Okay, so then my intervention is I'm going to do some CBT. right? We're going to do some cognitive restructuring. That's what Beck would say. Beck said that the problem is your stinking thinking, right? So I'm going to, do some Beck stuff with him, some affirmations, maybe have him read a book. And then when he comes back in, I'm going to use the Beck scale again. I'm measuring to see if my intervention is working. If he's still at a 9 or he's at a 10, we got to do some medication because my CBT ain't working, right? If I come in and that one, he's at an 8, right? And he's gone down from a 9, we're good. So if you see the question about why we use an assessment, and we'll use it over and over and over again, because I'm trying to see if my intervention is working. Okay. Back in the day, I know you're all like, what? Back in the day, we decided if it was working, if the client felt better. We'd say, well, are you less depressed? And if he said yes, we're good. We don't do that anymore, right? We use assessment tools, we use goals, we use SMART goals of measuring. But definitely that's what we used to do, just if you felt better. Okay. Pilot studies just mean before you do research, you just need to do a small group of people before you actually get your big study going. Longitudinal and cross section. Longitudinal just means, I've been looking at this for the last 6 years, 5 years. One of the reasons that we know that smoking is bad for you is because back in the day, when the Marlboro Man was cool, right? Are you old enough to remember the smoking hall in high school? Okay, right? I'm just saying. Okay, so if you're not old enough, somewhere in the old schools, there's a big like pit like in the middle, and the teachers and the students went and smoked together. Okay, so they did. I'm not making it up. It's true. So we now know that smoking is bad for you, but we know it because of watching long-term studies. Okay? I know if you're not old enough, you should just Google some stuff. The movie stars would smoke. Soap opera stars would smoke. It was cool to smoke, right? On every magazine cover, the Marlboro Man was out there, right, with his hat, and he was like sexy, smoking. So that's how we know that smoking is not good for you, though, because of the long-term studies. Okay. Again, I'm gonna keep going back to COVID. We don't know the long-term effects of COVID, do we? We haven't had enough time. We really, really just don't know. And just working with my clients that have gotten better and sometimes still have those lingering side effects and struggle with memory and things like that. We don't know. I'm boosted. I got the 4th booster shot. I don't know if my arm's going to fall off in 10 years. I don't know. So, I do not, then I'm going to Italy. So that's why I got it. So let's face facts. Short term is what's important to me. But we don't know, right? Honestly, you say hope not, but we don't know. We really don't know. And that's what long-term studies are about. Cross-sectional, same time, different group of people. Okay, same time, different group of people. So if I wanted to know what people were buying from Walmart tonight for dinner, I would ask all of you at 10 o'clock tonight, or 9 o'clock, right? And go to Walmart and watch what people have in their carts. That's cross-sectional, okay? Same time, sections, right? People across this different people, same time. That term meta-analysis, that's that big old mean word for lit review. Meta means many. Oh, can somebody mute themselves? Meta means many. Okay. Many. So we talked about, I see. Sorry. I just figured out how to mute everybody. I just learned something. So meta just means many. I think last week we talked about metacognitions, or maybe we haven't yet, with the CIP, the cognitive information processing. That's a career term, and it's called, there's metacognitions, many thoughts, meta-analysis, your lit review. Okay. That is never, ever, ever the right answer on the test. Ever. Okay. So if you've got a new client coming in and something's going on and you're not sure about, when's the last time any of you read a research book that you didn't have to? Not the right answer. Okay. Never, 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 never. Must often seek supervision, refer the client out, but that's not going to be the right answer of how to figure it out. So internal and external validity. We touched a little bit on those last week when it comes to questions. So internal validity in research or any test is the inside, the test questions. Okay, so face validity, I talked about that, right? If you go to there and you open the test and it says, welcome to the researcher's exam, welcome to the real estate exam, you're out of there. That ain't my test. Face validity. Internal validity is when I open up the test and I look at the test questions. Okay. And I know many of you have felt like, oh my gosh, this is the wrong test, right? But the test is valid. So some of the things that can threaten internal validity. So this is most often talking about the research part, right? So then I've got these researchers. I've done my randomize, and I've got my people, and I'm doing my research. So some of the things that confound, mess up, confuse, change are some of these things. Okay, the selection of subjects. So the people that I randomly picked for my research. So maybe I picked the wrong subjects. Maybe randomly I didn't get what I was looking for. The instrumentation just means the actual test piece. Okay, that's the instrument I use. So if I use an instrument that was outdated or an instrument that was slightly different, again, that threatens the internal validity. Maturation, results due to maternal or other changes in the subjects and not due to the treatment applied. What that means is, especially in a question, what you'll see is I started doing a longitudinal research, right? And I started with people in first grade, right? And I ended up with people in sixth grade. And I find that there are changes because they've grown up, right? They've just grown up. So things have changed. So that's what that means. Mortality or attrition. Yeah, people die. So what that means is people, remember when you were in school, the first day of grad school, and you said, look to your left and look to your right, half these people will not be here. Really, people just drop off. So the attrition rate is literally that. People will drop off, especially in long-term studies. Okay. Experimenter bias. Sometimes that's also called the halo effect. Right? I'm looking for what I'm looking for in my questions, or I find stuff I don't see. Right? My type 1 and type 2 errors. That's experimenter bias. History means something major happened. Okay, so again, a lot of my coworkers, a lot of my peers, when I was getting my doctoral degree, happened in the middle of COVID. Right, so if you were doing research on older people in the middle of COVID, that research just suddenly stopped. History means something happened. Extraneous incidents, a national, local, or any kind of tragedy. Right. So it influences. So when the same questions that they might have asked the people before COVID, right? You go back and then you ask the same questions, and you're going to get a different answer. Statistical regression. I talked about that last time. That means everybody likes the pink. Remember the 68, 95, 99? All that means is that we talked about test, retest last time. Everybody likes to be in the middle. 68% of the people, 2/3 of America, are always going to be in the pink. So statistical regression, regression to the mean, both mean the same thing. And again, just facts. You don't have to know why. You just have to know that if I take a test and I score really high, which is like over here in the +3, or really low, which is over here in the -3, and I go back to take it again, I'm going to score closer to the middle. Everybody likes the pink. In grad school, they made, you know what? We don't really care for this test. All you need to know is regression to the middle, statistical regression is a normal part. We all like to blend in. Okay. So those are all internal validity. That's the inside of the test. Okay. So then external validity is the whole research or the whole test. So a good example of external validity is, let's say that I am looking at kids who are playing on the playground, and I'm looking at how 2-year-olds play with each other. And inside my research, I've used the lab, like a fake playground or something that was closed off, and I could just kind of watch in a lab setting. And then I try to take this research and put it like in the outdoor setting, like a real playground, and my answer may not be the same. Right? There's so many things I can control in the lab setting. I can't control what really happens on the playground. So external validity, and validity is, does it do what it says it's going to do? Right? Does the test do what it says it's going to do? With my research, is my research proven to do what it's supposed to do? So then external validity, same thing. The selection of the subjects. The ecological validity is the one thing that is different, because ecological is the outside. So your environment is the different part. So if you're doing a lab setting the first time, and now I take you back to ecological validity, that means I may not get the same answer. Hawthorne effect, that means people do different when they're being watched, right? Okay. Demand characteristics. Demand characteristics are a very big part of research. So sometimes, do you remember that Pygmalion or the Rosenthal effect? That means when I'm trying, I'll find what I'm looking for. Right, that's part of research, because if I want my drug to work, so I may find what I'm looking for. That's called the Rosenthal, not the Purple Book guy, or the Pygmalion effect. Okay. Demand characteristics are things that I have done, or something, a look on my face, or something that gives my person a clue of how I want them to answer. Okay. So when I'm tutoring you, sometimes I'll turn my camera off, and sometimes I try to not get the look because you're waiting for me to respond. You say number one, I'm like, right? So those are the demand characteristics. That's giving you a clue of what the right answer might be. So that is really then messing up. That's not a good test, right? That's not fair, because you're looking at what the look on my face, or the clues I give you, to see if that's the right answer or not. Okay. Those are those terms, Pygmalion and Rosenthal. That's all that means. Okay. These terms, nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, make sure that you know those. Okay. My nominal gives me the least amount of characteristics. Nominal are groups of people. That's the nominal data. Okay. The least amount. So if I'm doing a research and I'm putting people in categories of how I'm doing my research or gathering my information, okay? So nominal information, just categories, data, black people, blue people, green people, red people. It doesn't really tell me a lot. That's the one that gives me the least amount of data. Ordinal is order, first, second, third, fourth. That's the order that we put things in. Okay. So those are both qualitative data. Qualitative is the relationship, right? How these things are related. Quantitative data is going to be interval or ratio. Interval is time, right? That your clock moves every minute. Your the degrees with my daughter with COVID, right? I'm watching that degree, that thermometer, making sure it doesn't go up a degree. I actually asked her to take a picture of it and send it to me. Let's be honest, okay? Because I'm not kidding. She's 18. It's not like she's 12. She's 18. So, and then ratio data. Ratios 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6. Those two are qualitative data. That means I am looking for the correlation. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the cause and effect. Okay. Qualitative data, I'm looking at the relationship. Quantitative data is cause and effect. Okay. And again, just memorize the terms. That's really that knowing why won't help you on the test. Just knowing that is just what you do. Knowing the steps of math or the steps of any of the algebra, you just have to follow the steps. So one of the things that I say, and I don't teach a lot about those non-parametric pieces. So when it comes to research or assessment, the 68, 95, 99, the bell curve, right? That's called parametric data. Things line up symmetrically on the bell curve, right? It's a bell curve. It lines up. When they don't line up, that is going to be called non-parametric. Okay, that means they don't line up. The numbers are going to be skewed and it won't give me that normal bell curve. With nominal data, I'm going to use the chi-square. Just a fact, just a fact, just a fact. Okay, the chi-square is what we use with nominal data. There's some others on there that I'm not going to teach you, but you almost always see that one. That's the Greek word. If you're not Greek, chi-square. It is used to measure nominal data that is non-parametric. It just means it won't fit on the perimeter of the 68, 95, 99 bell curve. Okay. Some of my sampling terms, right? I like where's this one have conventional? I'm sorry. No. Convenient sampling. Convenient sampling is just like whoever happens to be there. Right? I put something on Facebook and the first 20 people that answer is who I take. That's my sample. Sampling is looking at your population. Random is simply that simple. Anybody everywhere has an equal and same chance of being part of my research. Stratified are categories. I always think, I don't know why, I think like the stratosphere, like there are different like layers in the clouds. Yeah, one of my kids studied clouds one time. So stratified means that I am looking for certain groups. So you see that now with the COVID vaccine was just approved for kids like 5 and under. That's because the research was just done in that category. That's what stratified means, in categories. So first of all, we started off with like this age population and this age population. So it refers to selecting in such a way that major group are sampled. So I'm making sure I got the old people first and the women and the men. That's just stratified. Different categories of people. It can be boy, girl. It can be socioeconomic status. All of those things are in that category. Now, proportional stratified is what we would like to get. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen a lot just because of the way that America looks. So if I am working at a college and I am trying to look at what is best for my college, and I know that my college students, the racial makeup is 50% white and 30% black, and it is 30, 20, 20% Asian, right? That's the makeup. That's the makeup of my college. So if I just do kind of a random study of people outside the college, because it's 50% white, randomly, I'm going to get more than mostly white people, right? Just because that's the population of who I'm most likely to see. But if I want to get it to match the population, then I'm purposely going to get the right numbers. So if there are 50% white people, I'm going to get 5 black people. There are white people. There's 30% of black people, I'm going to get 3, right? And then there's 20% Asians, I'm going to get 2 Asians. The goal is to make the population representative of the college. And that's a harder step, right? Because most often when you live in a country where the majority, African Americans are like 13.9%. So if I stood outside the local Walmart and people are in the town just for the college, I won't get a representation of the actual college. So that's proportional because I want it to match, and stratify because I want it to certain groups. Cluster sampling is very much geographical because you live on my same block, same zip code, same state. That's cluster. You're all clustered together. Purposeful sampling means that not everybody has the same chance. So for my PhD research, I looked at a very specific population. So not everybody in the world had the same chance. It was purposeful picked, so you had that chances. Okay. Okay, so when it comes to the independent and dependent variables, of course, the independent variable is the one that changes, right? The cause the change. Dependent variable, minus D, right? It's dependent. It can't do anything by itself. The independent variables are what causes the change. So usually I have my water in front of me. If you've seen my old videos, I don't have a water in front of me. But let's say that I have my water. And my water just doesn't taste good. Oh gosh, I wish it tasted better. My water can't go down to the kitchen, do anything by itself, can it? Run down. Nope. It's dependent on the IVs, right? The things that I do to change the water. I will know if the IV affects the water by the change in the water, how the water tastes. Got me so far, right? Yes. I think Rosenthal talks about that the dependent variable in your body, like you're laying there, you're sick, and the IV is what comes in to make you better, right? Independent variable. Okay. So the way that I know the IV worked is because I measured the change in the DV. There's been a change in me, it worked. Okay. So let's say that I've got my water here. I'm trying to figure out what I like the best. So I go downstairs and I get a lemon, right? I'm gonna squeeze a lemon in here. I'm thinking, hey, that's not bad. I go back tomorrow, squeeze a lime. I'm gonna try a lime. Not bad. That is a t-test. I have two independent variables in one DV. I know which one I liked better because either I like the lemon or the lime, and that changes the taste of the water. Okay. If you're sick, you're laying here, okay, doctor comes on and he gives you an IV. Okay, so let's say the first time he's going to give you some, let's say, I don't know, a steroid, right? Give you a steroid. Your IV, you're laying here, you got a steroid. Okay. And then he comes back later and he says, hey, you're not getting any better. Let's try an antibiotic. Right? So now he's got an antibiotic, and then he's going, well, let me try this other antibiotic. Let's see if it works. And I'll know if I got better based on one of those antibiotics, right? So the DV is where I'm going to measure the change. So the first time that he gave me the saline or steroids, it didn't change. And the second time he gives me an antibiotic, right? And I change, I'm the DV, that's a t-test. So two IVs, one DV. I'm the dependent variable. Okay. If I had a headache, right, get a really bad headache, and the first time you took a Tylenol, it did nothing. You go back and you take something else, ibuprofen or something. That's a t-test. You know that one of these worked because your headache went away. Okay. So that's my independent and dependent variables. So the t-test, right, that has two. If I'm going to take it a little bit higher and add another one, that is going to be then a ANOVA. So ANOVA just means three or more, okay? Three or more independent variables, still one dependent variable. That's my ANOVA. Analysis of variance. And on the test, we're only going to see a one-way analysis. That's all you need to know is the one-way analysis, which is the same thing as an ANOVA. Okay, so three or more, right, of the independent variables, one dependent variable. So in this test, they are measuring, what are they measuring? The dependent variables, client self-esteem. And then their independent variables are looking at male or female therapists. Okay, that was the t-test, right? One thing, two different variables, male or female. We're trying to see which of these IVs helped the client's self-esteem. So now we're going to look at ANOVA. So ANOVA is going to look at then the same sort of thing. We're looking at the client's self-esteem, but now I have 3 or more of the independent level. So I looked at now the training of the clinician. Does it matter if it's an LPC? Does it matter if it's a master's, an LCSW? Does it matter if it's a doctorate program? That's my ANOVA, right? So now I've got 3 or more independent variables, but still 1 dependent variable. A factorial analysis, you will know because there's so much stuff going on in that question. You're like, what the heck? You will know there's so much stuff going on in there. So in this one, what that means, so all of these factors are going on. We still only have 1 dependent variable. Still just trying to work on the client's self-esteem, right? That's a dependent variable. Now I've got 2 or more independent variables at 2 or at least 3 levels. So I'm looking at the male and the female, and then looking at the master's, doctorate, or PhD level. So that means I've got the male doctor who's a LPC, a male therapist who's an LSW, a male therapist who's a PhD. Then I've got a female therapist who's a LPC, a female therapist who's a LSW, and a female therapist who has a doctorate. Right? That's what that. There's so many factors in the question. You'll know. Like, what the heck? So that is a factorial analysis. I'm analyzing all of the factors that may have caused the problem, or maybe the solution. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the cure, the DV. Okay. You don't usually see MANOVA, so I don't usually teach that one, or NCANOVA. Okay, so all of those are parametric tests. They'll line up on the bell curve, right? T-test, ANOVA, factorial analysis, all line up on the bell curve. I mentioned before that the chi-square is going to be then a non-parametric. There's a couple of other chi-squares, a couple of other non-parametrics. If you knew everything else, come back and learn these. Okay, but I don't usually suggest you learn these. What I'm going to say to you is the one with the weird names. Those are non-parametric. Okay, because t-test, ANOVA, factorial analysis, those are parametric. Okay, I know the chi-square is a non-parametric one for nominal data, and the rest of these, they're also that, but funny names means they're non-parametric. You might see one of these on the test, and most often you'll know enough to know what it can't be. Okay? And then the chi-square, that's the one I always teach because that's the one most definitely you'll see. Okay, and that's your Fallman square. I think those are the major things. Okay, so I went through a lot quickly, and I'm going to pull up some questions, but ask me questions. Something that you're not sure of that totally went over your head. I'm sure it did. Most of you are doing pocket prep. If you're not, I'm not suggesting that you buy it. But many of you have seen these questions before on pocket prep, and I just want to make sure now that you have some information behind them that maybe have a better idea of why that's the right answer. I'm sorry, yes. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily, because I can have the halo effect when I'm not doing an experiment, right? Yes. Okay. So yeah, so experimental bias can be the halo, but the halo effect can also be related to other things. So the halo effect could be, you're sitting in a classroom when you were back in grad school and you had that really hot teacher, right? And you paid more attention. That's the halo effect. They might not have known anything, but there was something about them that you found to be attractive or charming. That's the halo effect. But that effect then in research, right? If I find one of my researchees, someone who's in my research, I think that they're just amazing. And then I'm more likely to kind of not see the truth because of the halo effect. Okay. That makes sense? Okay. Another question? Or you're like, oh my God, that was awful, Dr. Pam. Yes, I know you are. Go back and watch it, break it down, watch it over and over and over again. I promise you, it won't seem near as hard as it seems. Okay, go ahead. Mhm. The the I so in the stain on scale, what I say, first of all, I don't think you need it. I mean, that's you might get one. I don't spend a lot of time on that one. Between five is the middle, right? Five is always the middle. Between two and eight are going to be within the second standard deviation, and one and nine are in the third standard deviation. Okay. So what she's talking about is the bell curve. And when I used to teach it, I used to say all the time, go back and just make sure that you memorize it. I am not seeing, again, so in research, there really only are about 8 to 9 questions. So I don't say go back and learn the whole thing. I just don't anymore. You do need to know how it works, right? Because you're going to get some of these questions and you need to know kind of how they line up. So you know that the Z score, right, is the exact same thing as your bell curve. So before I showed you the 68, 95 in color, the 68 is the pink, right? So it's negative 34, positive 34. That's your pink. Then your, so it's 68, 95. Then I'm going to add the 13, the 34, 34, 13. That's where the 95 comes from. And then I add the last one, right? Negative 3 to positive 3. That's where the 99 comes from. So adding all of these together is where I get that standard bell curve. So then what I know is this is the middle, right? All right, so whether it's 0, 50, or 100, this is the exact middle. So in the world, most of us, 2/3 of the world, are 34% below average or 34% above average. But 2/3 of us are about right there. Okay. And I said earlier, I talked about regression to the mean, right? So what that means is if I scored really low, like way over here, the negative, or I scored really high, the positive, when I retake the test or redo the experiment, I'll score closer to the middle because everybody likes the peak. Okay. The Z scores and T scores you need to know. The Z scores line up exactly with the normal bell curve. So if I scored a Z score of a -1, on the bell curve, I'm still a -1. Line up exactly. T scores are by 10. So 50 is always going to be the middle. They go down by 10, up by 10. Just facts. Just facts. Right? The stay on you set, and again, you might see one of those, but they're not trying to trick you. The middle stay on is always 5. Right? It's always 5. And between 2 and 9, right, or 2 and 8 are within the second percentages. And the last ones are between the 1 and the 9. The 30%. Okay. Okay. That don't even count. That is the hardest test, the hardest question I've ever in my life seen. Don't let it go. Let it go. That is the worst question I've ever seen when it comes to independent variable. Does everybody know what she's talking about? Have you seen that test? There is a question on in a practice test that says, no, only that one. That one's an awful question. That's the only bad one. So it says, birds of a feather flock together, and ask you what the dependent variable is, or what the dependent, right? What's the no? What's the independent variable? What the independent variable is? Okay. So then that's just an awful question. I'm gonna give you another one. I wouldn't even. I hate that question. I teach this all day long. It's just awful. Okay. Can everybody see 17? Okay, don't anybody answer until I say so. Let everybody get a chance to see. Okay, don't answer. Okay, so researcher testing the outcome of two medications gives one the sorry, a researcher testing the outcome of new medication gives one group the drug and the other group the placebo. The placebo is what? Don't answer yet. The dependent variable, the independent variable, the intervening variable, or the antecedent variable. Okay, so antecedent and intervening aren't the variables we're looking for, right? So I know it's not it. So now I'm down to one, or sorry, I'm down to one or two, right? I got most got there pretty good, right? The one and two. Now we're like, what the heck? So then what I'm looking for is how will I know that the change happened? I measure the change in the dependent variable. The independent variable is the one that's all here by itself, right? All walking willy nilly. And the dependent variable is where I measure the change. Okay? So then, someone answer this question. I can't find my ballot. Oh, that one's broken. Ah, yes. Let's throw it. Oh, here we go. Yes, yes. Got it. Exotic. That's it. That's yes. Okay. So the placebo's independent variable. What is the other independent variable? Yeah. Independent variable. The medication, right? Yeah. So there are two independent variables, right? There's this group of people, right? So and the drug, one gets the drug, one gets the placebo, right? So then those are both independent variables, and I will know if it worked, if the drug works, right? So the placebo and the other drug are both independent variables. Everybody got me there? Okay, that's just a much better question than the one on that book. That test is like the worst I've ever. And the test is not going to be that hard. They are not trying to trick you. Okay, does that make sense of how we got there? So this is a true experiment, right? Because there are two groups. One got the placebo, which is the control group. The other group got the drug. That's my experimental group, right? And to find out which one worked or not, that's how true research works. Please. Are they all sugar free? Okay. Nope. 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 It's depend. No, it's dependent. It's dependent, right? Yes, that is correct. And if you have three or more of the independent variables, that then is a ANOVA. If you only use two, that's a t-test. Okay? Yes. Let's see here. Okay, so this one's a little different. Okay, so 20 and 21 run refer to the following statement. Again, don't answer yet, please. Okay, so a researcher hypothesizes that racial homogeneity among members of a group, like a researcher hypothesizes that the greater the racial homogeneity among members of a group, the greater the level of cohesion. So first of all, I'm like, dang, is this a research class or a group class or a diversity question, right? Because all them terms are in there. So what I know, right, is that homogeneity, right? Those are my homogeneous groups. We like people that look like us. Okay, so the greater the racial homogeneity, so the more people look alike, that the closer they will be. That is the hypothesis. So in this question, what is the race? Okay, don't answer yet. So again, so it's not, we're not doing any, the 3 and 4 are just to throw you off. Okay. So an intervening variable is sometimes the same thing as that post hoc, like something got in the way of my research. I found out she was pregnant, things like that. So that's an intervening variable. There's nothing in here that says something got in the way or something changed. So now I'm down to either 1 or 2. Okay. So when I'm thinking about this, what I'm thinking about is, how will I know the change? How will I measure the change? How will I know if it happened? Right. So the dependent variable is what I'll measure to see if the change happened or didn't happen. Right. So what is my answer? Anybody? Yeah. Nobody else wants to. Go ahead. So I'm sorry. The question says, in the situation, race is what? Is that my answer? Okay. Not the homogeneity. What am I trying to measure at the end? How will I know if yes, 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 my that's it. That's it. So then using different races or heterogeneous groups, right? That's what I'm going to measure, how close they are. Now we all know, because you've had group with me and sessions with me, and you know that homogeneous groups are more cohesive, easier, right? Because we like people that are like us. Heterogeneous groups, different, it takes a little bit longer to get there. Okay. But that's exactly what the question is asking me. Okay. So then the greater the racial homogeneity, the more people are alike, I think the greater the level of cohesion. So then race is the independent variable. So if it's a heterogeneous group, then I can make the same assumption. So then, if that is the race is my independent variable, then 21. The degree the degree to which that dependent variable can be found is what? So now I know what the independent variable is, and I also know what the dependent variable is. What's my answer for 21? A, the reflection of how often it is, right? Cohesion is how we measure we, right? In a group, if we recognize ourselves as the we, we've done that forming, norming, storming, performing, right? We're the we. That's what we want, because the healing happens in the cohesiveness. Dang, dang, dang. Like, and this question could be under any subject. It's like everything. I don't know, right? It's group and diversity and research, like all in one question. I don't know where it would count. Right? But I think that's a typical question, because they're really looking at, do you know content? Right? Not only do you, in order to know the answer to this question, you got to know some of those terms. Yeah. Well, yes, Dr. Pam, you're absolutely right. Thanks. I appreciate that. I still have no one to talk to. My daughter's home, but she's in the room with COVID, so it's you or my dogs. Let's see here. Look at number 25. Okay, again, don't answer. Okay. In a research project designed to study the mother infant dyad, the most useful method of gathering data would be. Okay, so a research program, I am studying as the mother infant dyad. That just means the relationship between the two, the mother and the infant. That's all that means. Okay, a dyad is 2, triangulation is 3. So then, what is the best way to gather this data? 1, a questionnaire that completed by the mother. 2, an interview with the mother by a researcher. 3, the analysis of videotapes of a mother-infant interaction. or 4, to qualify and measure the infant sleeping, sucking, smiling, and crying behaviors. What is the best way to study the mother infant diet? And why? Exactly. Ding, 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 ding. There you go. Right? Because if you ask me, I will say, yeah, my baby and I are great. Right? But if you see me, you see the observation, you can see the relationship. Absolutely. It is. It is. It is. And I'll always tell you, keep you I would say read, but I'd be lying if I tell you I read a lot. I listen a lot and I watch the words. So you do have to increase your vocabulary, though. This test is written, remember, it is written for upper middle class white men. Let's face facts. The people that you study, right? The Freud, the Piaget, even the Maslow. That's what the test is based on. Okay. So know that vocabulary. You just, and little things like that will miss it. Thank you for bringing that up, Michelle. I want to go back to this question on pocket prep. This one. Okay. And if you've seen this question before, you might know it, so don't answer. There's a general rule that a certain percentage of the population is adequate when determining a sample size for studies. What is that percentage? So, what that's asking me is when I'm doing research and I'm trying this new drug out, this new medication, what percentage of people do we use? 5 to 10. Just so you know, next time you go try something that only tried it on 5% of the people. So I just think that's very interesting, right? So we've done this empirical research and we know that ibuprofen and Tylenol and all these things work. We only tested on 5% of the people. How do we know that? So just an anecdotal to help you remember. I just think that's a really important question. Let's get that one. Okay, I'm going to go back to this one. This is again, this is a social worker question. This is a social worker test. So I'll give you this one as well with the study guide that goes along with it. 20, I like these because they're more scenario based. And I think that's what the test looks like, even in the research and stats questions are still scenario based. And you need to know how to understand the scenarios because it's still a reading test. 26. In a recent survey of married couples, a statistical significant difference was found between older and younger couples regarding sexual activity during the wife's first menstruation period. Older couples tend to have less sex at this time. In this case, a statistical significant difference means. Okay, like, what the heck? First of all, is it human behavior? They're talking about periods and stuff. I'm freaking out already, right? Okay, make sure I understand the question. So, recent survey, that means it's going to be qualitative or quantitative. Which one? Say it again. Qualitative, yeah, qualitative, right? Qualitative is a research. Quantity, those are numbers. This is just your opinion. So, a recent survey of married couples, statistically significant. That just means there was a large enough difference for me to know. No, we don't want any more fish, but thanks. Wasn't that Friday and Friday fish night? Just saying. Just saying, right? And that's recorded too, just so you know, just if you want to mute yourself in the future. So, statistically significant difference was found between older and younger couples regarding sexual activity during the wife's menstruation period. Older couples tend to have less sex at this time. In this case, what does this mean? So all it's asking you is based on those 3 lines, and I know half of you are already at the answers, and I'll tell you don't do that. Understand the question first. Spend the time understanding what they're asking you. That is the key to the question. Okay. So then, all I know is for some reason there's a difference between older and younger people, right, when it comes to menstruation period. So then, what is the reason based on that? One, there's no difference and this is probably a human behavior question. There's no difference between older and younger couples. Two, younger couples are more liberated than older couples. Three, the observation differences probably did not occur by chance. Or four, sexual activity declines with age. Four is not true. Normal human behavior. If it worked when you were younger, it works when you're older. Sometimes might mean take some little blue pills, but I'm gonna tell you, okay, that is human behavior is not true. Okay, so sexual desire does not change. So that one's out. Okay. Statistically significant difference. That's what the question is asking you. What does that mean? What? Come on. Okay, so what's my answer though? Let's rule out. Okay. So that all it's asking me is what does statistically different mean? Okay. So then, one, there's no difference between older and younger couples. That's not true. There are differences, right? Okay. Two, younger couples are more liberated than older couples. I don't know about that. It is three. Significantly different just means that this is not a random event. The reason that younger people have more sex during the wife's period than older people, I don't know why, but if it's statistically different, it means that there's a reason for it. It's not just by fluke. Does that make sense? Everybody good with me on that one? You're like, I don't know if I buy that one. So this is a research question, but you had to know human development to get it right. Okay, so human development. So on the social work test, there's a question about the women in a couple in nursing home, and the mother calls up and she's like, "My mother's having sex in nursing home. What do I do?" Like nothing. Okay, so in nursing facility, that if both people are capable of making their own decisions in their right mind, right, then they can do whatever they want to do, and you have to guarantee some privacy. I'm just gonna say, grandma can get a booty call if she wants to. She be flipping through Tinder and right. So as long as she is old enough, as long as she's in her right mind, that's the decision, right? That gives me hope for the future. That's exactly. Come on over. I'll take my teeth out. It'll be fine. Sorry. That was not appropriate. Okay, so I just again. So let's look at number 30. In an experiment, the control group is what? Okay, one, the same as the experimental group, except for the induction of a causal variable, i.e., the intervention. Two, never tested before or after the introduction of the experimental variable. Three, always given up placebo. Or four, chosen at random. In the experiment, the control group. Never tested before and after the introduction of the experimental variable. The control group gets nothing in a research design, right? The experimental group gets the drugs, control groups gets the placebo or nothing. Okay, so it is. Got it. Okay, so that's the control group. And truly, they're not always giving the placebo, but that's what they're looking for to make sure that you know that the experimental group is the one that. Wait, that's wrong. That's wrong. No, it's got to be four. It's got to be a chosen at random, right? Because the experimental group. What? No, wait, Pam, stop. In experiment, the control group gets nothing. They're the ones that get it. The experimental group get the real drug. So three is my answer because it's the control group. They're controlled. So we're not doing any experimenting. Nothing. The placebo or nothing. Okay. So the experimental group is the one that actually does the experimenting. They're the ones that are getting the new drug. Okay. They're chosen at random. Remember that. I mean, it can be a sugar pill, right? Okay, look at number 38. I briefly mentioned that. The characteristic of an interval scale that is not found is what? I talked about interval scales. Interval are, it's time, but it's consistent time, right? I'm looking like how fast you can run in 3 minutes. So, or how much temperature, how your temperature went up in, 3 seconds. It's the controlled amount of time, the degrees on the thermometer. Mm-mm. Greater, less, or equal, that would be ordinal, right? First, second, or third. That's ordinal data. On my clock, it moves every minute. So, which is my answer? The characteristics. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's a not question. Oh my gosh, I totally missed that one. Oh, it's a not question. I'm so sorry. Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So that would have been, it would be one. I'm sorry. I didn't read the test. Oh my gosh. Yes, it is one. That's what happens when I don't read. Absolutely. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I totally missed. I didn't see the not, and I read it. I read it out loud. Yes, we good with that one? You can. So, had I been reading, what I normally say are three of these things are right, one is not. So I try to go down and try to figure out which three of these are right. The not questions always confuse me. Obviously, you see that. Let's see here. Correct. And one is not. Same thing. Exact same thing. Exact same thing. And unfortunately, that not and accept is not always highlighted. So when I'm reading them and I get there and I'm like, oh, wait a minute now, like these things I can't figure out. I know I've missed something in the question. Mm-hmm. I'll send you the research stuff. Yes, this is the source work. Please don't freak out. There's stuff you haven't seen before. No freaking out. No freaking out. Like, oh my God, I've never seen this one. Sorry, that's my hesitancy is when I send it, is I get people that are extremely anxious. And I'll see them the next time and they'll spend like hours researching something that was something that's not going to be on your test. And I do. I use a lot of both. I like a lot, and I told you again, I like social work questions a lot better, just because they're a lot more of the scenarios. Okay, I'm trying to find one that you don't have. Okay. My dog's like it's time to go. number 74. Okay. And just put in counselor, don't freak out. Okay. The mother of a newborn baby with spina bifida is anxious about caring for the baby after returning home. The baby requires ongoing, intensive, and complicated treatment and specialized care from a variety of system workers. What is the least effective immediate strategy for helping the mother and the family? Okay, so it's a reading test. Before I look at any of the answers, right, I just want to make sure I understand the question. Okay, so the mother's got a newborn with spina bifida, right? Hole in the spine, if you're not sure what that was. So this is probably one of those normal human development questions. The baby requires ongoing and intensive and complicated treatments. I can only imagine. So now, of these things, right? Immediate, that means which one of these, three of these things are very good immediate strategies, things I would do right now. One of these is not something that I would do immediately. Right? So I'm looking for that one thing that I would not do. Right? So that's the least. So, one, offer appropriate home-based services to teach her and her husband proper home care procedures to temporarily relieve the family stress. Yeah, I do that right away. That's important, right? Two, help the parents understand the medical, psychological, and social implications of the child's illness. Most definitely. Three, arrange a referral to the specialized agencies with the services the family will need, right? That fourth one, inform the parents of the severe difficulties that that they're likely to encounter. Would I do that first? I'm going to help my newborn baby. You going to tell me how bad it's going to be the next 3 or 4 years? Does that make sense? So that's a least question. So it's still the same way. So which one of these things would I not do? So except, least, not, still, 3 of these things are okay. 1 is not. Okay. So my doggies are saying it's way past their time to go out. Okay. I will get this recording out. I like to say tonight, but I'll get it out, I promise. And I did the research. I used the Halwick book. If you don't use the Halwick book, and I use these, the questions are social work questions, and I will send those with the explanations as well. Anything else? Yes. Heck if I know. So I don't know. Okay, so we were in Skype before. That's what we've always been, and at Skype it was right there. Skype doesn't want to work for us anymore, and so now we switch to Teams. I don't know where we're going to put it. I swear to you. So I will have Prudence send an email out or send an email to Prudence to figure out where it is and where we'll be next week. Because this one didn't work the way, and I don't know if she wants to go in and add like the new people every week. I don't think that's going to work for us either. So I don't know where it'll be, and I don't know what we'll be doing next week either. Sorry, but Prudence will know. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm off? Thank you. Oh, wow. I'm excited now. Cool. Okay, then. So I don't know. I'm not being coy with you. I really don't know. So we're trying to find the best way. I love Skype. I love Skype. But so the Skype is going away and they're not being supportive. So if you remember the couple of groups, they kept booting us out. And I paid for Skype for 100 people. We would get to like 60 and it wouldn't take anymore. So then we called Skype for backup, and they're like, no, Skype is, they're not providing technical assistance. We're going to Teams. I don't like Teams personally. I don't like it at all. I use it for work and I don't like it. So Emily, my social media person, and Prudence were trying to find the best platform to work on. I don't like Zoom because I can't put anything in the chat box. I don't like this one because I can't put anything in the chat box. So I don't know. I really don't know. I can tell you that we'll figure it out. That's what they're good at. But just email her for this one. Okay. And I probably won't have it done tonight. I'll tell you that right now. I got to upload it to YouTube. Other questions? I know we went way over, and I know that research is a difficult subject. There are 9 questions, 9 max, okay? But you don't know which 9? just memorize them. Okay? You don't have to know why everybody regresses to the mean. You don't care. Okay? Bye, guys.